What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. This is our first, and maybe it'll be our last, who knows, plant-powered edition. We're talking about plant-based eating for powerlifting, so it's something that's kind of a hot topic, and we're going to kind of dive into it. We got two of our my favorite and our strongest female athletes here, so we're going to talk about how they kind of eat and some challenges they have, why they do it, and just some suggestions for. So this is, all I guess like just anecdotes, and we're just going to have a conversation. But I think it's a good conversation to have because diet's always something that's heavily debated. So if you guys want some information, obviously it's good to see a nutritionist and things like that. But just hearing some information from athletes that are actually kind of in the arena, kind of doing work and at a fairly high level, I think is always a good thing. And this podcast is also sponsored by Squats and Spirulina. Just kidding, guys, no sponsor, but. All right, so just really quick, we've had both Mel and Alex on the podcast before, but just really quick, if you want to introduce yourself, and if you want to give a little bit about your iron cred, maybe some of your best lifts, and just who you are and what you got going on right now. So sorry, Mel.
I compete in multiply powerlifting. So I started out raw, went over to the dark side, so I compete equipped now. 2 weeks ago, qualified for the Arnold, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, Ohio bound in March. I hit a 415 squat, a 225 bench, and a 400 deadlift. And those are meet PRs, considering it's my first time in the full suit, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'd say 1,040 total, and then also I know at the higher weight class, I think you benched 240 before.
It was the first time at the 165 as well.
Great. All right, and Alex, you?
Same thing, started out raw and went into multiply. Last time I did a multiply meet was a year ago at 132, and I don't even remember what I did. 365 squat, 195 bench, 300 deadlift. And then my best, I did a 300 squat, raw at 132 also. That was a pretty good raw lift. I don't really remember what else I've done raw, but yeah.
Yeah, and I know you haven't competed in bed, but hopefully you see in the platform we're getting to, and also, Alex also squatted, I want to say, I think 420 also, or something, I think definitely over 400.
Yeah, in the gym, yeah.
In the gym to a good standard, so which is fantastic. So obviously, whether it be raw, equipped, or whatever, both, ladies, squatting and deadlifting over 300 pounds without any supportive equipment, and also, an over 400 pound squat and equipment, which is, very substantial in any body weight. So it's not just some people may eat a certain way, and if you're doing very low load kind of exercises, or not really, doing a squat with 400 pounds on your back is substantially different for how you need to prepare than just doing bodyweight squats or kettlebell squats, or the demand is way different. So one of the biggest challenges is getting protein in and stuff like that. So before we kind of get into the specifics of the diet, maybe if we'll again just go back and forth just like we were doing. If you want to speak to why maybe you switched over to being plant-based and what your kind of diet looks like, and just I guess why you ended up choosing that route, and we'll kind of go from there. So.
Mine was two reasons. First one, for a really long time, for me personally, ethical reasons. I was kind of just flip-flopping back and forth, trying to kind of justify kind of what I felt. It didn't make sense, but at the same time, it was like, well, you keep justifying, and there was this long-term cognitive dissonance where it doesn't line up with what I feel is okay to do. And then my second reasoning was I had a lot of irritable bowel issues. I had a lot of stomach issues. Yeah, all the meds they wanted to put me on were really bad for your other organs. And I thought, hey, let me see if it's just a matter of not eating things that probably, pay attention to my body and not eat what my body doesn't want me to. It was just trial and error and just cutting out all the animal products. I haven't had any of the same issues I had before.
When you were eliminating things from your diet, was there a specific process that you were doing, or you kind of just trying to see how you reacted to certain things, or how did that work?
The first thing that I did was I cut out dairy, and I knew right away dairy was a big no-no for me. Even if something has a little bit of it, I'm in pain.
Cut that out. Did you feel I guess I don't know if benefit's the right word, but did you feel like a pretty big difference right away when you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't feel as bloated. And I also didn't have just bloating, but I had almost like a stabbing pain, and it was like near constant, like throughout the day. And when I cut down on dairy, that went down a lot. But it wasn't until I cut everything else out that it went away completely.
And so what was like, I guess as far as from cutting out dairy and into cutting out like all animal products and going into like a more vegan kind of diet, like how long was that transition? And
24 hours. So I'm a very like on-off person where I have to do things like 100%.
You just jump.
So the day after,
you just jump
the first full meet I did with just the briefs, but it was like my first full power meet and equipment. Day afterwards, I bought the RP vegan template
to get, like,
and
started.
just figured it out. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, RP is short for Renaissance Periodization. Our friends Nick Shaw and Mike Israel, excuse me. They have some great products, great resources, and it is a template. So you have to have some trial and error. And everyone's so like how I eat is going to be like way different than how these ladies eat. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. But that's why we wanted to kind of dive in a little bit deeper of like the why. So whether it's moral reasons or health reasons or a combination of both, I think that all those things are important to consider. As far as like the dairy thing as well. Everyone's different with how they're going to process certain foods. Some people tolerate things better than others, so it's just important to kind of note. But so Stan Efferding has a quote. It's like, he eats foods that he doesn't eat food that he likes. He eats foods that like him. So just basically with the whole digestion thing. So I think that's just a really, that always kind of resonated with me. And I think I've been also toying with some of the ideas of like kind of starting to eliminate foods kind of long term and. Like for me, I think it's more like wheat and gluten and refined carbohydrates is a big thing for me personally. So it's just something to consider. And again, just to kind of reiterate, if I didn't kind of say it enough, like no one's a doctor here. We're not nutritionists or anything like that. So this is just we're sharing our experience with you, and we hope that it'll help. So and then Alex, what about you? And then what made you make that transition? Mm-hmm. What was like kind of the reason behind it, and then how did you kind of start that process?
So I started eliminating animal products when I started volunteering, when I started doing animal rescue work, and that eventually led me to now I'm going to veterinary school next year. And then it just didn't make sense for me to rescue animals and then eat them at the same time.
You felt a little it was like a moral dilemma.
Yeah, even though I wasn't rescuing farm animals, but it just kind of led me to kind of opening my eyes a bit, even though I only know one vegan veterinarian, and I know very few people in companion animal rescue who are actually vegan, but that just was my experience. And then I was still eating dairy products at the time, and then I was working for Whole Foods, and they actually had this health immersion program. They still do. I had a friend who recently went on a health immersion where they would pay for these trips where you'd go for a week long, and it was really amazing. I went into the mountains of Sedona and I just ate plant-based for a week and meditated and hung out, and we did these lectures with some of the top names in plant-based nutrition, Dr. Colin Campbell, and it was based around the Engine 2 diet, and there were some other doctors.
Is there any people that aren't familiar with that? Like a quick summary of what that entail?
So that was my introduction to starch-based, plant-based dieting. So when I came out of that, that was the end of my eating animal products. So for a long time I was pretty much oil-free. I kind of adhered to that oil-free. The focus is very much on greens. It's very strict adherence because the focus is really on preventing cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all the kind of chronic illnesses that plague Americans. That we think there's a genetic link and such, but environmental factors and lifestyle factors play such a huge part. Right. So that's kind of the basis of the diet and the purpose of it. It's not really as much ethical basis, but for me that was my
your starting point.
That was my starting point, and that's primarily why I still adhere to it today, even though I've gotten very lazy with the oil-free and and all that kind of stuff. But that's probably when I felt my best, was when I was eating oil-free and focused on eating greens and fruits, and they even don't even like you eating a lot of nuts and things like that. But yeah, that was kind of my introduction to plant-based.
Was it, as far as like the transition of like how you were eating and like what was it like going from what you were eating before, and as far as like your energy levels, maybe digestion, other things like your mood, because I know it's been like a while, but like maybe was there like a little bit of like a period where it was kind of tough, or did you feel like really good right away when you switched over? Like what was that?
I would say I felt really good right away. What they tell you when you go on these health immersions is people will experience it. So when you walk around in this this kind of the retreat area, you smell farts constantly, because people are they can't handle all the greens that they're eating.
It's such a your body's like obviously not used to processing that.
So you're just walking around wherever you are and just smelling farts. So you do have to get used to digesting more greens there. Not that I was eating not a lot of greens before, but yeah, I would say that you have to eat a higher volume of food if you're switching to eating this sad standard American diet, and you're switching to a plant-based, less processed diet. You have to eat a higher volume of food just to make up for the caloric intake. But I would say eating starch-based, the base of my diet being things like potatoes, rice, I feel great on it, and I feel full all the time. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, so especially when it comes to like green leafy vegetables and things like that, there's a lot of great micronutrients. For some people, some vegetables can also wreak havoc on your digestion, just like animal products could with some people, or dairy could, or wheat could. So it's kind of important to note not only how you're feeling right as you eat it, but also like an hour or two after, kind of note when you're trying to eliminate certain things and figure out what works best for you. I know again, I know we talked about Stan Efforting before. He's not a big fan of some of these the different things like asparagus and Brussels sprouts and things like that. Whereas for me, I enjoy those things a lot, and I think there's a lot of benefits. So you have to kind of just weigh the pros and the cons and kind of see how things react to you, and see what fits your lifestyle and your morals and ethics and things like that. I happen to really enjoy animals too, but I do eat a lot of animals also. But I'm also very grateful for, I think that's kind of an important thing, just to kind of, but whatever you believe, I think, is important. You kind of, I think it's important that you kind of stick to your guns and whatever makes you feel good, both, inside and out. So this is kind of always the biggest question is the protein question, I think, right? And obviously not all forms of protein are created equal. So so there's some nutrients that you're going to be missing when you eliminate animal products. There's going to be some challenges in getting enough protein in. So what are some strategies that you've used personally, or some of your primary protein sources or combinations of foods to make sure you're getting complete amino acid profile?
Well, I just actually RP is really, really good in that they hook you up with this little chart, and there's 3 different columns, and then they'll tell you to pair this column and that column when you're first starting out. So that way they kind of complement each other, and you kind of learn what to put together. And even it doesn't have to be meal to meal. It just throughout the course of the day you are going to need to get stuff that is somewhat complementary. But I didn't find that was that big of an issue. I think part of it is I think people go into it thinking how are you going to get your nutrients? How are you getting when you did eat animals? You ate vegetables. It's part of the reason people don't eat vegetables. It's you got to get it from more than a multivitamin. So I think one of the biggest things is people just assume, well, I got to swap all the garbage I was eating, being not plant-based. Now what do I eat plant-based? It's well, the same thing you were doing before. Eat a well-rounded diet. You should be eating your greens. You should be getting fiber. You should be getting, depending on what your macronutrients are, should be coming from a variety of sources. So I think it wasn't that hard. I think what people fall into the challenge of is that people want to eat the same thing every single day. And unless you're getting stuff that's kind of complementary, for me, the biggest thing was varying my meals and getting lots of different things. I'm a creature of habit. I can eat the same thing breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like years and I'll be fine. But that doesn't really, unless it's like the perfect meal with, everything included. Like, for breakfast, I don't want a bunch of fiber. I want something tiny. And I obviously can't replicate that throughout the day.
Fits your needs.
So you got to kind of figure out how it fits your needs, how it fits your schedule. But at the same time, it's also not super hard if you're eating your veggies. You want to get those phytonutrients, and that's where you get a lot of those vitamins. Is I think people get caught up with the meal replacements and the shakes and the vitamins and all the pill form stuff. It's like
focus more on supplements.
Yeah, you should have been eating that to begin with. So I think when you look at it that way, I don't find it that difficult.
So just if you can, it's okay. But for some of those like the columns, I know one that just kind of pops up that's kind of common is like rice and beans.
Yeah,
gives you
that's an
is there any other ones that you use personally or?
Yeah, so Ezekiel bread, it'll tell you what's mixed macros, so it might have a little more carbs in it, but Ezekiel bread's awesome because it's pretty complete protein base in terms of its profile.
So for people that aren't familiar with Ezekiel bread, can you just explain what the
so it's if you look at it's literally got a bunch of grains and nuts and stuff in it. If you pull it out and look at the slice, it's super grainy and very full of texture, and it's just the manufacturing process is different than white bread or even whole wheat bread, but it's also a lot more high in protein. The only downside I've found is it doesn't keep as well because it's
not to eat it quick.
Full preservatives.
It has simple ingredients in it. It's
not full of crap.
It tastes good too, actually.
So the sprouted grains, or if you are a bread person, is I'd say the taste is a little bit different, obviously, but it's not gonna. It's more like a real food. Versus a lot of I don't want to bash, I guess I don't know, Wonder Bread was the first thing that came into my mind, but just a lot of these if it has a high shelf life, you gotta kind of question what's in it to kind of keep it that long, I think the big example is always a McDonald's French fry, I don't know, just doesn't change color ever, so you gotta imagine what kind of chemicals and things or whatever. I think that kind of answers. Alex, you have anything that you want to add as far as protein sources or getting protein strategies for that? Because obviously part of lifting weights is, repairing muscle damage and things like that. So, what are some advice you can give to people to get their protein?
I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I think just eating a variety of sources, a variety of foods to get a variety of sources. I think protein is way overemphasized. I think a lot of people eat way more than they need to, so I think it's just something that's not to be feared on a plant-based diet. It's very easy to get what you need.
And do you, as far as I know obviously you focus on whole foods first, but if someone was going to supplement with some things, are there any type of shakes or powders or anything that you have used in the past that you find beneficial or something to kind of get some more protein in the diet?
I'm a big fan of Huel, Huel. It's Fuel with an H. It's a meal replacement. I only use it for one of my meals just because I really don't have an appetite in the morning.
The timing.
Yeah, but I also put I'll put a bunch of other stuff in there, so it's not just a shake. I'll put fruits and vegetables in there. I've become a fan. I'll put a bunch of pumpkin seeds in there because there's a lot of fat and protein in it. Okay. So it's basically a bunch of food liquefied. So it's not it's even just a supplement. Which is one thing, you don't even have to spend money on the supplements if you really don't have the funds. You can just start liquefying your meals.
And do you know what kind of, what's the, I guess the primary ingredient?
Pea pod protein and oats, the two big ones.
So I know for me, we talked briefly about going lactose free was one of your first steps. So people don't tolerate whey protein, even if you're not vegan or not really interested in going plant-based. A pea or hemp protein or a pea or hemp protein blend is a really good kind of shake or meal replacement or thing or something you could add to. If you wanted to do some fruit and veggies plus get some protein in, I think that's a really good it's a good convenient option when you're kind of on the go and maybe you don't have a lot of time. Maybe Mel does boot camp stuff in the morning. It's what her job is. So if you're have to get up at 4 a.m. and you don't really have time or you don't want to, you need something that's kind of portable. You can't really maybe be eating eggs on the road or something, I mean, you could try, I guess, but the shake's probably a little bit more of a convenient, more portable option. So that's something else. Alex, anything else as far as powders or supplements or things that you've kind of used in the past that you found some benefit?
I'm not, I rarely use them. Ones I've used in the past that are good brands that aren't too processed. I don't like super processed things. Not that I'm, some hippie or anything, but Vega.
Wait, so you can be a vegan and not be a hippie?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, of course.
I'm pro-GMO. Vega is a good brand. I know Trader Joe's makes a pretty affordable hemp protein. They have a flavorless.
I literally just bought that.
Yeah.
It's like $10.
Yeah. Those are some ones I've used in the past.
Is there anything that you have to focus on as far as to getting certain micronutrients or certain vitamins, or like that you try to you talk about having a variety of stuff. Is there anything that you really try to focus on? So for me, I'll just use myself as an example. Spinach is loaded with a lot. It checks off a lot of boxes between potassium and magnesium and a lot of other things. Is there any foods that you try to get on a regular basis to make sure you're kind of getting certain nutrients in day to day or anything like that?
I usually keep a lot of spinach on hand because I usually just stick it in the shakes.
Yeah.
It's just an easier way to get it in there.
That's how Popeye got Jack, so you gotta get those forms, going.
But that seems to be the easiest one, is just having it on hand to because you didn't even taste it in the shakes, honestly. Because there'll be some days where it's if I'm not hungry, it's a lot easier to stomach something sweet than it is something savory. So if I can't taste it in the fruit flavored shake, it makes it a lot easier. And then again, getting iron. Does have some iron, and it's not the richest source of iron ever, a little bit, and also some fiber, which is always good. But it's just very easy to work with. You can do a lot with it, so I always have some of that on hand.
Anything that you go to, Alex, that's kind of...
Just occasionally taking a B complex or B12, or just making sure I'm eating when I drink
B vitamins are really important if you're going plant-based, for sure.
Animal feed is supplemented with B12, so that's where people who eat animal products are getting their B12 from. So if you're eating meat, you're not going to get the B12, and it's not going to show up on your blood work until you're really depleted. So it can take a couple of years of not eating B12 before you're actually going to know that you're becoming deficient in it.
Yeah, and I think that's also just a good point. It's probably a little outside the scope of this podcast, but I got my blood work done maybe 2 years ago, and I probably I'm going to make an appointment. Actually, I need to follow up because I sent a message to the place I want to go to, so I don't want to call them out or anything. So, but getting your blood work done, actually knowing what your vitamin mineral deficiencies are is super important, because a lot of people are kind of shooting in the dark with that stuff, which is also kind of one of the reasons why just taking random multivitamins is not necessarily the best thing, because you don't really know what you need or that sort of thing, or what you're deficient in. So I think that's really good advice. I think we covered a lot of the stuff. I guess the only other thing we'll wrap up in a second, but I think this is another important piece. Is there anything specific that you personally have found helpful, pre-workout, to make sure? So now we talked a lot about health and lifestyle and things like that. What about performance? What's something that helps you when you're you're trying to squat 400 pounds? And I feel I'm going to let Alex go first, and we'll go back, because I feel we're so she can get a chance too. If you have a really big workout, big squat, big deadlift coming up, what do you kind of like to do to prepare your body and fuel yourself for that kind of workout?
Well, like I said earlier, eating starch-based has really helped me with my energy levels and feeling sustained energy. So if I'm gonna, if I have a big lift coming, I'll make sure to eat something starch-based, lower in fat a few hours beforehand.
Get nutrients absorbed a little quicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much the same thing. I've found that this has kind of helped me realize that maybe, like she mentioned, dropping the protein a little bit, definitely upping the carbs has helped a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like my body composition has gotten better. I feel like I have gotten stronger. I feel like I'm recovering better because of it. And I was very much on the train of, you need this amount of protein, and that's number one. And that was also RP is very big on the protein intake, and that's one thing that I kind of tweaked with the templates, which is my only qualm with them, is that it's very rigid and that's it. And if you're not open to trying new things, you might not really get the best takeaway from them. But I have changed them up a little bit, where if I'm looking for a certain meal, I might get a more starchy form that might give me some protein, but I get more side carbs as well. And I found just in general, upping the carbs beyond what the template has given me, I feel a lot better doing it.
Yeah, I think it's really bothering me. I want to give this person credit, but I will not remember. I'll probably remember tomorrow. But one of the things I learned, no, it's not gonna, nope, not coming to me. Maybe if I had some sleep the night before, that'd be great. Jesus, it's really bothering me. Anyways, it'll come to me in a little bit. One of the things I learned from a bodybuilder, which I'm not going to remember, but it's really bothering me. Anyway, carbohydrate is the more carbohydrate you have, it's more protein sparing. So if you are on a high carbohydrate diet, it is true that you don't really need as much protein. Again, I wanted to give credit and source it out. So we'll just say that I said it, but that's what I've definitely found that to be true. So yeah, if you're going to have a lot of carbohydrate, you probably don't need as much protein. In general, like one of my things, and I think to Alex's point, I think that is true for people in the fitness and weightlifting community, that protein can be like overdone. But I will say that for the general population, I think that could be opposite as far as people that like are just eating a ton of sugar and junk and things like that. They probably need to focus more on getting the protein in. But for a lot of bodybuilders that are trying to get like 300, 400, 500 grams of protein, it's overkill. So I think if you kind of aim for like 0.8 grams per lean, like like lean mass, like not necessarily your body weight. If you're like kind of lean, you can do your body weight. But if you're carrying a little bit more body fat, so somewhere between like 0.8 to 1 gram per pound is like plenty, and that could even be probably more than you need if you're having a lot of carbohydrates. So these are just some general guidelines that we find is helpful, and it kind of depends on, like I said, what the ratio between your fat, your protein, and carbs, and they all kind of play a role. But yeah, if you're going to have like a higher carb diet, obviously your fats and proteins are going to be lower. If you're going to have more of like a lower carb lifestyle, then like obviously the opposite is going to be true, and you're going to have like more fat and then more moderate protein. So these are just some things to consider, and I think before also, like again, having like a lot of that starchy carbohydrate, whether it's rice or potatoes, some combination, some sodium, pre-workout and post-workout to replenish your glycogen is going to be very helpful whether you're vegan or not. So I think hopefully these ladies can shed a little light that you can be plant-based, you still can be strong and lift a lot of weight. So I think that is really it. If there's anyone, I guess if someone was maybe on the fence about going plant-based, or maybe some, we'll start with you, Alex, like what's some advice that you can give someone that maybe wants to try it, first step they could take if they wanted to consider going plant-based?
Well, I'll say first, I know some people are afraid of soy. As far as
that's definitely a highly debated thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid, as far as the gynecomastia thing with men, it's only been a few case studies. There's no definitive research on that. And then, right now it's inconclusive whether it really has feminizing effects. If you are afraid of it, you do not have to be plant-based and eat it. You can definitely avoid it. I certainly do eat soy in some, a little bit. I don't avoid it completely. I don't, I think the research is pointing towards more beneficial effects. But my point is, don't be afraid of going plant-based because you think you need to eat soy. So that's number one. I think that deters people from what I'm hearing in the fitness community a lot.
I think that's one of those things. I think it's a very like one of those polarizing topics.
Yeah.
I think like some people, if you have like a little edamame here and there, I don't think it's going to kill you.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that if you're going to choose, like probably having, on that same token, if you're going to have some edamame versus something that's a soy product that's highly processed.
Or McDonald's, or if you're going to go to McDonald's, it's, I think,
Yeah.
So
There's other things to consider for sure.
Yeah. And there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of Instagram pages that you can follow for, recipes. There's a lot of books out there on plant-based eating. And I'm certainly, I've dabbled in activism, but I'm certainly not here to tell anyone how to live their life, and I'm not, dogmatic about anything. But I think the takeaway from all this is that no matter how you eat, I think eating less processed and more plants is beneficial to everyone's diet. So I think that's a good place to start for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same thing. I mean, going back to the soy thing, there's not a whole lot of science to substantiate any of the fear-mongering you hear on social media. I mean, if it was like that, I think people in, Asian countries would just have an insane amount of health issues if it is, as bad as they claim it is. And if you look, their rates of everything are way lower than ours, and it could be, it's a lot of lifestyle factors, there's a lot of things to go, but, when you really come down to it, I think it's funny what people choose to be afraid of, and then as they're pointing the finger at that, they're eating a Big Mac. So they choose to, be okay and happy with what's convenient, even if it's slowly killing them. So if you want to stay away from soy, that's fine. Definitely there's really no science behind being afraid of it, unless you're like highly allergic to it, which obviously stay away from anything you're allergic to. But at the end of the day, I think people also need to put into perspective that, even if you choose to not go that route, it's a lot easier to stay the same and eating the same garbage processed stuff because it's convenient, it's easy. And I was at that place, I grew up, I was always a fat kid, and it was like, well, it's hard to eat healthy, and healthy food costs a lot, and one of the biggest things I've found, one of the biggest things people say, like, oh, going vegan is expensive. Trader Joe's is so cheap. I just came from Trader Joe's, and it's, you can make it work, and I've found I spend less money now than when I used to eat meat.
Yeah, I would say the protein source is probably a big part of, it's a big expense food-wise. You can get a lot of high-quality veggies and fruits, starch. That's really not that expensive at all. But I think also when you're talking about investing in food and your health too, it's like, you got to also consider the quality and like the actual nutrient content you're getting, not just the calorie amount, not just, I think at the end of the day, you could find excuses for anything.
Yeah.
And I think I guess harping on like the soy thing, I think, if someone actually has some concerns and maybe they do have high levels of estrogen and stuff, there's many other factors to consider and, environmental concerns and things like that. And, if you want to kind of like leave no stone unturned, of course, if you want to be overly cautious and you want to avoid soy, that's fine. But I think probably there's, you want to focus on the big rocks first. And if like that's like the one thing you're focused on, you're probably missing the boat.
Yeah, I think probably at that point, I think the first thing would be go to a medical professional, get blood work done, because there's so many environmental factors.
Actually, no, like
probably not. It's probably not soy. It's probably a bazillion other things.
Yeah, it's like probably a drop in the bucket. I think people get like really afraid of things they probably don't need to. That's a whole other thing, just being just stressed out for no reason. But I think I think to kind of wrap up. I think for me, and again, this is like coming from somebody, meat is a big part of my diet. I think I feel really good. I recover well on it. But since one of the things, like in my weight loss journey and my health journey, adding in vegetables has been a big part of that. Not just for health reasons and energy levels and all that, but also vegetables can help kind of sustain your hunger, help you feel full. The fiber's got a lot of benefits, all the micronutrients. So. Even if you're not going to like, we're not like trying to get anyone to go plant-based or anything. That's not like the point of this. Just to give people options if that is something they want to consider and it's something they believe in. It's hopefully gives you a little insight from some people that are actually doing it, and some from people that are actually like I said lifting at a fairly high level. So if you're kind of concerned about maybe on one hand you want to start to add more vegetables in, or you want to go more plant-based, you want to head toward that direction, but you're afraid about like it impacting your performance, I think this is some just good anecdotal evidence. Get some ladies here lifting some big weight, and they're doing just fine. And on the flip side of the coin, there's nothing wrong with, like I said, just eating in different ways that kind of support your needs. But I think this is kind of like a hot topic, and I definitely want to address it. So I just want to thank you both for coming on the show today. Trying to think. Well, I guess we'll close out. But also, are there any like sources or people that, if they did want to learn more about like this kind of thing, where they could? I know you mentioned the RP template. Is there any other like websites or people that you would kind of recommend?
Well, like I said, the Engine 2 diet was where I started. It's pretty hard. It's pretty hardcore. But the person who
learn from it.
The person who started, and his name just somehow escaped me right now. But he was a triathlete in the Olympics and everything. So he was an athlete too.
Yeah.
There's the China studies. very well-known book on plant-based eating. Colin Campbell, Dr. Colin Campbell, those are kind of like some heavy hitters in plant-based dieting, and they're out there, like I said before, to prevent all these chronic illnesses that kind of plague Americans right now.
Yeah, she mentioned some good ones. I thought RP was very good at explaining things in depth. The only thing I would say is it's a good list of what to go to, in terms of what not to go to. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of bro science, a lot of Instagram profiles with people that are just, they call themselves nutrition coaches and they don't have any, they have nothing. They just, it's all anecdotal stuff. It's not science-based. And when you're dealing with something where if you do this the wrong way, you're going to have vitamin deficiencies. At that point, you're playing with someone's health. So I would really caution people to make sure that you're getting your information from people that, can back it up with science, from people that are experts in the field. Some fit chick on Instagram probably doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, if something is really like out there or really extreme, I think it's always, you should kind of proceed with caution. But yeah, I think when it comes to like, with, for whatever reason, I know, like, especially like when it comes to like powerlifting and strength sports and stuff, it's like always like, this big deal if someone's a vegan or like they eat plants, or even like it's almost like not cool to like eat your veggies. It's not like kind of manly or whatever you want to say. So I think that if at the very least, I think just adding some veggies to your diet, some greens to your diet, some fruits, just see how you feel on those things, and then start to eliminate some of the junk. I think that's a great place to start. And then you can kind of decide, what you want to do from there. I think another great resource I always like to recommend when it talks about like a lot of the benefits of some of these micronutrients from a lot of plants and also other sources is Stan Efferding's Vertical Diets. There's a lot of great stuff in there as well. And obviously he's a big advocate of like, red meat and things like that. But you want to try to find the commonalities between all these different diets and seeing what's working for people and what are like the health benefits. I think that you'll find a lot of times the answer lies somewhere in the middle. And then, like I said, if you have some moral or ethical concerns, both these ladies provided some great points on how you can transition or just kind of give a plant-based diet a try if you want to do so. So I think that is basically it. Thank you again for coming on. This has been another edition of the Powerlifting for the People Project podcast. Gee, sorry, Mark. I'm going to get a cease and desist from Mark Bell. No, just kidding. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this interview, please give it a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Please subscribe, and thank you guys for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.